Welcome to the College Admissions Collaborative highlighting engineering and technology college fair. We're so excited to have you participating in this event. We have a fantastic school with us here today. My name is Nashira and I will be your facilitator. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. Your camera and microphone are off so the panelists cannot see or hear you. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. This is just one of many different sessions happening, so be sure to check out the schedule on the website. This presentation is being recorded and will be available at strivescan.com/CACHET. Now I'd like to turn it over to Olin College of Engineering.
Thanks, Nashira. Hi, my name is Susan Hartley-Brisson. I'm the Director of Admission at Olin College of Engineering, and I'm delighted to be with you this evening. My presentation is going to take about 30 to 35 minutes, and so I'll have time for questions at the end. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the Q&A as I'm speaking, but bear with me. If I don't get to your question right away, I'll certainly get to it when I conclude. And this presentation will wrap up at about quarter to the next hour, depending on what time zone you're in. I'm in East Coast, so it'll be 8:45 for me, but we'll make sure we have time to get to your questions. The first thing I'd like to do is just introduce you to Olin, and the best way to do that is to talk about our vision, our mission statement. We're a mission-driven institution, and this is some lofty language. But it really does, I think, orient you to kind of the guiding principles behind Olin College and what makes us a slightly different option for engineering education. We believe that engineers are natural problem solvers. So we believe that engineers are questioners. They are looking for answers. We further believe that Olin engineers are uniquely suited by virtue of the kind of education they receive to address the world's really thorniest problems, which includes creating equity and ensuring sustainability. We believe that Olin can change the definition of who can engineer and what counts as engineering. So when I say that, I mean, engineering sometimes I think gets a bad rap for being, stodgy and maybe not really engaged with the world in the way that it needs to be. And we disagree with that vehemently. And we educate students who are thoroughly and fully engaged in the world and are dedicated to using their skills to improve the world by resolving and addressing some of the major problems that we face. I just want to reference creating equity. When we talk about equity and ensuring sustainability, we are using the United Nations definitions of those words. And so essentially, what that means is that sustainability, in ensuring sustainability, we are helping all people in the world to a decent quality of life. And that's really what sustainability means to us. And that's kind of what we're focused on at Olin. So let me move on and tell you some more. We are located in Needham, Massachusetts, so we're about 15 miles outside of Boston. We are a community of 330 diverse students. So that's pretty small, right? That's probably for many folks, your high school might have been larger than our community. We are dedicated to our size. Our size is deliberate. It's purposeful. It's not sort of a random afterthought. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. And as I said before, we are united by the commitment to using engineering for the greater good. Engineering in service to the world is the language that we use. When I say 330 diverse students, I mean that students are diverse in terms of background, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of gender identification, in terms of experiences that they bring to the Olin community. But they are all united by this common desire to use engineering for the good of the world. And that's a picture of our campus. We have a sort of green, leafy suburban campus. This is to the right is the academic building, the primary academic building, and the smaller building to the left of the slide is the administration building called Milas Hall. That's where my office is and where the library is located, as well as many faculty offices. At the end of the presentation, there will be some links that will direct you to other resources about Olin. One of those is a virtual tour. We are loving to obviously welcome people to campus in real life, but recognizing that's not always possible. We have virtual resources on our website that give you an opportunity to see what the campus looks like. I think that can be very helpful. Moving on. Now this is not the Olin campus, clearly. I showed you the picture before of a very leafy suburban kind of place. This is the city of Boston. For those of you who are familiar with us, it's Fenway Park down in sort of the right center, the Boston skyline in the background there, the Prudential building, the Hancock building, and then the financial district further sort of looking forward. When we were founded, and Olin was founded in 1997, so we're a pretty young college as well as being a very small college. We were founded, our location was chosen deliberately for a couple of reasons. One, we wanted access to a major metropolitan situation, and that would be the city of Boston. Boston is arguably the greatest college town in America. And so Olin students have access to the city, not only for social opportunities, and those are certainly important, but also for opportunities for research and internships and other partnerships with other academic institutions. We are also participants in what we call the 3-college collaboration. You'll see on the slide, Babson, Olin, and Wellesley colleges comprise the 3-college collaboration. And that also gives Olin students the opportunity to be part of larger communities. Again, Olin community is small. There are many advantages to our size. We also recognize that there are some limitations as well. And our location near Boston, as well as our participation in the collaboration, kind of help offset some of those limitations, I think. Students can cross-register for classes at Babson and Wellesley colleges. And for those of you who are not familiar, Babson College is probably the finest business and entrepreneurship college in the country. Wellesley is one of the best liberal arts colleges in the country. And so both of those institutions bring different specializations, right? Students who are at Olin maybe are interested in entrepreneurship can take those classes at Babson. Students who are interested in arts and humanities, all students at Olin would need to take some of those classes to fulfill their major requirements, but there are many additional offerings and sort of a richer, kind of more robust curriculum at Wellesley. So this gives students an opportunity to engage in those kinds of studies as well. Additionally, students who are at any of the 3 colleges can participate in activities at the other campuses and also eat on the campuses, eat in the dining halls, use the facilities, use the library. We are immediately adjacent to Babson, so you could walk there in under 5 minutes, really just across our campus. Babson's right there. Wellesley is a bit further away, a couple of miles, but it is easily accessible by the shuttle that runs between the 3 campuses, or if students have cars on campus, they can drive there pretty quickly. So it is feasible for students to get back and forth. So when I talked a little bit earlier about the mission, that was some pretty, as I said, kind of lofty, high-minded language. And I think it's important to give you some specifics on how we accomplish these very kind of big picture goals. So the first thing I would cite that a way that we use to achieve our objectives for educating students in service to society is we are a wholly undergraduate institution. So, excuse me, students who at Olin are all undergraduates. We don't have grad students. And that means a couple of things. First, it means that undergraduate students at Olin have the benefit of their faculty's attention. They have the full faculty attention. Oftentimes at larger institutions, faculty are also working with graduate students, and that takes up a lot of their time. Students at Olin have the benefit of their professor's attention. Students are able to cultivate really close relationships with their faculty. Faculty serve obviously as academic advisors and teachers, but also as mentors and kind of sort of bigger picture advising for students. So students also have the opportunity to assist faculty with their research, which again does not always happen at larger places because often those research positions are limited to graduate students, but not at Olin. Students can participate in research at the undergraduate level. So students are very well supported by faculty at Olin. Also faculty, also very well supported by the staff in terms of study abroad options or the career counseling office, student affairs. I think the final piece of this, which is maybe not as obvious, but certainly no less important, is that students at Olin are very supportive of one another. So Olin is, again, small community. I know I've said that now probably 4 or 5 times. Everybody matters. Everybody kind of counts. Nobody falls through the cracks. And students genuinely care about one another. We have a collaborative curriculum. We have a team. Students do a lot of teamwork in this project-based curriculum. So as a result, they really need to be supportive of one another. I mean, students are collaborative. They're not competitive. And when I say that, I don't mean that they're not working hard at their classes or trying to do their best, but rather what I mean is they're not competitive with one another. Students work hard, but they are able to, again, consider the greater good of their team, understanding that the team's success is ultimately their own success. So undergraduate teaching and learning in a very small supportive community is the first kind of tenet of in terms of how we accomplish our objectives. The second piece I would note is our curriculum is rooted in teamwork, in project-based learning, and in practical skills. Our curriculum is also interdisciplinary. And what that means is that I think, again, some people think it means you study a lot of different things, and that's true. Students do study a lot of subjects at Olin besides engineering, besides math and science. I mean, everybody completes an arts, humanities, and social sciences stream through the curriculum, which is a series of classes. Every student would do a capstone experience, a concentration in arts, humanities, and social sciences. But additionally, classes are taught through an interdisciplinary lens. So for example, in the first year, students are often taking classes that are taught by a team of faculty members rather than just one individual, but a team of 2 or 3 or even 4 faculty members. And all of those teachers are coming from different disciplines. So they are approaching the subject matter through a different lens. And that's really central to the Olin experience. We think about engineering in context. We don't think about it in isolation. We don't think of sort of like learn all the math, learn all the science, and apply it later. We are already thinking in the very beginning years of a student's experience at Olin, how you can understand the impact of engineering, not only how you do it, but how it impacts your world. And the way you do that is by studying other subjects besides math and science. Not that you don't study math and science, of course you do, that's central to engineering education. But additionally, students are taking courses in lots of different areas. Project-based learning, just like what it sounds, students are working on projects. There is not a lot of learning at Olin that happens in kind of a sedentary, sitting at a desk and taking notes while the teacher talks sort of model. That's not typical. Rather, students are working on a specific project with a definite deliverable at the end, and they are learning content that they need in the moment in order to accomplish this project. One of our faculty members described this in a really good way that I've kind of remembered and shared with other people, but what he said was that at Olin, we are not good at just-in-time learning. So lots of times, if you're taking a content-heavy class in math or physics, say, and the teacher teaches you something and then says, oh, remember this because you're going to need it just in case. And that's not the way we teach at Olin. That's just not the way we do it. We are very good at just-in-time learning. And that means that, again, you're working on a specific project and you're learning what you need to know in order to accomplish something very specific. And we think that's the best way to learn because you really understand why something's important when you apply it right away. When you use material, when you use information, you remember it better and you know how to manipulate it and you understand why it's important. So that is a direct result of project-based learning, that kind of style. And finally, practical skills. I've talked about doing projects. In order to do projects, you have to know how to build things at Olin. And so students do learn how to use the machines in the shop right away. Some students who come to Olin have had a lot of those experiences. They maybe done robotics, or they're, like to work on cars, or they like to build things at home, or they loved Legos as a kid, or they're, a crafter, they knit, or they do origami. I mean, we have a lot of kids at Olin who have those interests. And so that kind of lends itself to that practical skill, using tools, different sort of thing. So that, again, is an important part of the Olin experience. I mentioned this before, students take classes in design, arts, humanities, social sciences, but also in entrepreneurship. I kind of glossed over that, and that wasn't right, because that's important. Students take classes in entrepreneurship at Olin. And again, as I mentioned, if students' interest sort of exceeds what we offer in our curriculum, they can take those classes at Babson as well. And just as a side note, our course catalog is on the website. So if some of these classes sound sort of difficult to understand, by all means, go to the website. You can read the descriptions of the classes. You can see kind of what they're covered. That gives you a lot of good information to help you understand kind of what an interdisciplinary curriculum will look like. These are the majors that we offer at Olin. We have 3 majors. We have mechanical engineering, we have electrical and computer engineering, and then we have a general engineering degree with a concentration. And so design, robotics, computing, bioengineering, and sustainability are all concentrations that exist already, meaning that those are course plans that the faculty have put together thoughtfully that students can select. There's also the option for a self-designed concentration. And what that means is that you, just as it sounds, students would work with their faculty advisor to put together a course plan that was going to help them learn what they wanted to learn, achieve what they wanted to achieve, but also would sort of fulfill our requirements for depth and breadth and rigor within the curriculum. I want to point out that the computing concentration would be sort of our computer science major, kind of the equivalent to that. And then I also wanted to highlight the sustainability concentration. That is something that's new. Students have been really interested in sustainability at Olin, and it is, as I mentioned earlier, part of our vision statement. But we did not have a completely realized concentration in sustainability until just this year. And so that is something that's very exciting, and something that students can take advantage of. I'd like to point out too that students declare their major in their sophomore year, so second year. And also when students come to Olin, everyone has the same classes in the first year. There's an opportunity for one elective in the second semester, but students all take the same thing as first year students, regardless of what they want to major in. And there are a couple of reasons for this. The first is we want everyone to have broad exposure. I mean, getting back to that idea that we define engineering in context, we don't want people to specialize too soon. So we want to make sure that everybody has broad exposure, because all the engineering interacts with all the disciplines interact, and it's important that you understand that at the front end. The second piece is that we want students to develop sort of that cohorted identity that happens when you're all together. Project work and teamwork, collaboration is part of Olin, the Olin experience, from the beginning right up through till the time you graduate. And part of that is learning how to work on a team successfully. That's not something that everybody necessarily knows. It's, again, one of those soft skills, as they call them, that is not always taught, but needs to be taught. So in order to do that, we give everybody a common experience academically, so there is an opportunity to work on those teaming skills, and the faculty interweave that through the first year curriculum in a really, really wonderful and thoughtful way. So that's another piece of why everybody takes the same thing in the first year. Moving on, we students at Olin do research and they do internships. Now, this is not like a experience where it would be required that you do something like that to graduate. We don't require that of our students. Students may may not do a research opportunity or an internship and graduate, but it's very, very, very rare. We encourage it. As you can see, by the time students graduate, virtually 99%, virtually everybody has done either a technical internship or a research opportunity while they're at Olin. There is a big push to have students have that experience early on in the summer between their first and second year. Again, it's a good opportunity to earn money. Those are paid positions, and we want to help students earn money to help offset the costs of their education. We also want students to have hands-on experience. We really feel strongly that that experience helps you either solidifies the major that you think you want, or the opposite. It makes it clear that that is not at all what you want to do. So the more practical experience you can have, the better equipped you are to choose a major. And again, having that hands-on experience is really central to the Olin degree program. So we want to help students find those opportunities right away. My colleagues in our Office of Postgraduate Planning, that's our career office, that's the name of it. They work really hard with students starting in the first semester of their first year, helping prep them to find these internship opportunities. We do support students in finding them. We help them navigate that. And again, it's a really important thing to do early on. These icons are just some of the places where students do internships, but that's certainly not the limit. Students have done lots of internships, lots of different places. Again, if you go to our website, there's more information about our career planning, our postgraduate planning office, and that gives you some ideas of places where students have done internships. At Olin, we've roughly 30% of Olin graduates, sort of from the beginning of time till now, so 30% of that total, either are currently enrolled or have completed a graduate program. So as you can see, it is not the majority of students. Most students go into the workforce and they're very successful in the workforce. But there are always students who are interested in graduate school as well. And we are able to support them and help them prepare for that application process. There's a person in the postgraduate planning office whose focus is to help students prepare for grad school, helping them make good choices, not only within their curricula, but also in terms of what research opportunities they might take advantage of in order to make themselves an attractive candidate for grad schools. We often see students perhaps not go to graduate school right away when they graduate, but maybe be in the workforce for a couple of years and then decide they want to pursue a master's degree. And then they are able to come back to Olin and receive support from us, even though they have graduated already. I think the other really cool kind of fact here is that while the majority go on to STEM programs, 78% go on to STEM programs in grad school, but 22% do non-STEM programs. And I think that's a really interesting piece of information. Students can go on to education, they can go on to business school. We are teaching them a pretty versatile kind of skill set. And so while the content is engineering, the thinking skills, the project management skills, the ability to scope projects, those are all readily transferable to a lot of different kinds of applications. And I think that kind of piece of information supports that. So again, lots of different things that students can do post-graduation. But as I mentioned before, most go into the job force right away upon graduation. They are highly employable. They get jobs, they make good salaries. It is, again, that versatile skill set coupled with the work that graduate planning office does in helping students learn how to talk about themselves, talk about their skills, present themselves to potential employers. And then we also have career fairs. We have career fairs that give students the opportunity to meet and interact with potential employers. So if you take that sort of three-pronged approach, you can see why the results are really successful. All right, so at this point, I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about our application process because it is unique. But before I do that, take a pause. If anybody has a question that they'd like to ask about any of the information that I have shared so far, I'd be happy to talk about that now, or we could wait until the end too. But if you have anything you'd like to ask, feel free to just put it in the Okay, well, then I'll move on. So Olin has a two-part application process. There are two phases in the application process. The first phase is the actual application itself. So we do not have any early deadlines. We don't have early action. We don't have early decision. We have one application deadline, and it is January 1st. Actually, it's whatever the first business day of January is. I think this year the first is on a Saturday, so I'm not quite sure. But anyway, it is the first business day in January. We accept either the common application or the coalition application. They're both fine. We don't have a preference. This would include the personal essay that you would write. And we also have two Olin specific essays. Now, those are very important to us in our application process. We really want to get some insight into why you think Olin might be a good choice for you, sort of what you value, what you care about, what your passions are. That's the first question. And the second question is more sort of like an identity question, how you see yourself, who you are, things like that. They're short, 250 to 500 words, but they are important to us. So I would encourage anyone who's applying to Olin to take some time with those, because those are important. I should have started off by saying we practice a holistic admission process at Olin. And so what that means very simply is that everything is important to us. So all of these things that I'm listing here are all of equal importance as we are reviewing applications for admission. That's what holistic means. We're looking for the whole person, not just the parts. So going on, we obviously want to see your high school transcript. That's important. We have to have confidence that you have the academic background and ability to be successful in our curriculum, and our curriculum is very rigorous. So we would want to see your official high school transcript. We would also want to see your current senior grades. So that would be like your first report card or first marking period. That probably comes out in November sometime. We're not talking about the mid-year report. That's not available to February, because that comes a little bit too late for us. Now, when we look at your transcript, we take a very long look at your transcript in concert with your high school profile that your counselor will send to us, which gives us information about the kinds of classes that are offered at your school, how many people go to college, you know, all those kinds of things. All that information kind of goes into our conversation about your transcript. We're looking at your grades. We're looking at the rigor of the curriculum you've selected. We're looking for your trajectory. You know, maybe you had a slow start in 9th grade, but you're really, you know, killing it in 11th grade. You know, we're looking at all of those factors. And the reason we want to see your senior grades is very likely those are the most rigorous classes that you've taken in high school. We want to see how those are going for you. All students who apply to Olin really need exposure to calculus and physics in high school. That is important. We are test optional this year with regard to the SAT or the ACT. This is the second year of a test optional situation for us. And what that means very simply is that you may submit test scores if you want to, but you don't have to. You would not be penalized in any way if you don't submit. We have a separate process of evaluation for people who submit that information and people who do not. So it is your call, exactly. We also look very carefully at the recommendations that you send us. So we would have a recommendation from your school counselor and also from 2 classroom teachers. One must be a math or science teacher. And this is kind of a sticking point. They have to be classroom teachers. I know lots of times people have mentors and coaches and other people in their lives that are important to them, who they feel would be, you know, well able to comment on their ability to be good students in college. And that's great, but we are looking for people who've seen you in a classroom environment. That's important. So that's all the information that we are asking for. The deadline is January 1st. We read all of the applications in January. And again, as I said, we have a holistic admission model. So again, we read everything thoroughly and carefully, and usually by more than one person in order to make our preliminary decisions. So when we come to the end of January, we finished reading the applications, we do have a decision point, and we are then inviting a certain number of students who've applied, a certain number in that pool, to move on to the second phase of the process. So for some people, the process ends at the end of January, and other people are invited to move on to phase 2. And that is called Candidates Weekends. Now, Candidates Weekends, last year it was Candidates Week, because it was a virtual format last year. In normal times, students would come to campus and they would have an opportunity to meet lots of Oliners. We would have an opportunity to interview the candidates. We would have an opportunity to sort of see how you worked in a group, and sort of a scaffolded design exercise. You would have a chance to have lots of fun. It's like, unfortunately, we, due to the pandemic, had to go to a virtual format last year. We are in the process of determining what the format will be for this year. It is too soon to tell, but we hope to have some information fairly soon on whether we will be virtual or in person. In either case, this experience takes place in sort of mid to late February, maybe running over into early March. And it does involve some evaluative components, meaning opportunities for us to interview you, to kind of get to know you a little bit better. As a small institution, every individual has impact in the community to a much greater degree than you would find at a bigger place when there are more people. So as a result, we are really thoughtful and careful in our selection process. And likewise, students, candidates, this gives you an opportunity to be thoughtful and to have more information in order to determine whether or not Olin is right for you. So at the conclusion of the candidates weekends, we make our final admissions decisions and we notify people in the end of March, which is pretty typical. And then you have until May 1st, sorry, to decide what you want to do. Presumably you would have many choices, and then you have to sort of think about where you actually want to enroll. We invite students to come back in April to visit campus again, sit in on more classes, really kind of understand what an Olin experience might look like for them. At the end of the day, even though our application process is longer and sort of more complicated than a lot of other places, it really works well, because the kids who get to Olin ultimately like it there, and they stay and they graduate on time. We don't have a lot of students who come for the first year and then they oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be like, because you really know what it's going to be like. And we really have confidence in the students that we admit that they're going to be happy and successful. And so I think the process, again, as I said, it's kind of long, protracted, but it works really, really well. So moving on, this is information about our cost of attendance, tuition, room and board. Room and board is the same charge for everybody. We don't have tiered board options. Everyone lives on campus all 4 years. So the charge is the same for everybody. The laptop fee is a one-time fee. It's charged only in the first year. Students purchase a laptop that includes the software that they will need for their classes. And then it's maintained by our IT department throughout your time at Olin. Most of what students need for their classes is on the laptop fee, so there's not a lot of money that is typically spent on books or supplies or things like that. Nonetheless, it adds up to a pretty daunting figure. It's a lot of money. Private education is really expensive. There's no question about that. And we do have a net price calculator on our website. Most colleges do. We work hard to make sure that ours is accurate. So if you or your family members wanted to take a look at that and sort of plug in your own personal financial information, it would give you a pretty accurate example of what an Olin experience would cost you. We are lucky at Olin. We have a very robust and strong financial aid program. Every student admitted to Olin, every single one, admitted to Olin receives the merit scholarship, the Olin tuition scholarship. Now, a merit scholarship is an acknowledgement of your success in high school and an evidence of our confidence that you're going to go on and do great things in the world. So we invest in every Olin student by giving them a half tuition merit scholarship. It's currently valued at over $100,000. It's half the tuition amount, and it's for 8 semesters of study, meaning if you were to take a semester off to do something, you would not lose a semester's worth of your scholarship. And there's no additional application for this. Everybody gets it. Beyond that, we are able to meet full demonstrated financial need for students, for U.S. citizens and permanent residents. So we use the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And based on that, we meet full need for students who are eligible. And then finally, we are need blind in our application process. And so what that means is that when I'm reading applications for admission, whether or not somebody's applied for financial aid is not a factor. In fact, that's not information that we even have available to us when we're reading applications. So, you know, it is, this is, I think we are really happy that we have the means to support students financially at Olin. It's a good thing. Okay, so that is my presentation. info@olin.edu. If you have any additional questions that come up later on, or you're at home thinking about stuff, you can send us an email and somebody will get back to you. olin.edu/admission is our admission webpage. You please take a look at that. We have additional virtual engagements, and we also have in-person tours and information sessions. So if you're coming to Boston, or if you live in the area, please come visit us, take a tour, meet our students. We think that's a great way to get to know what we're all about, and a great way for you to decide kind of what you think. And also follow us on social media. We love to put out content that we think students like yourselves are going to find interesting. So I encourage you to do that as well. Okay. Does anyone have questions? Is there anything that you would like to ask me, or anything that I could talk more about? It's a lot of information in a short span of time. This is a photo of the drive from Great Plain Avenue, which is the main road that the Olin campus is on, kind of up to the parking lot. And so the trees are not quite that beautiful yet, but in another week, they're going to look like that. It's a really pretty time of year in New England. And the foliage is turning. And so that is as advertised. As I said, not today, but probably in another week or so, the foliage is going to be at that peak. So. And it's been great to be able to welcome people to campus. You know, we have not been able to host people on campus for such a long time due to the pandemic. So it's been really fun to have folks come and tour the campus. We were actually remote last year, as many places were. There were some students living on campus, but the instruction was remote. I'm happy to say that we are back in person fully, all in-person learning starting this semester, and it's going really, really well. I mean, it's been a kind of a long haul to be, to be all isolated from one another and everybody working remotely. And it's great to have everyone back on campus and seeing one another. I mean, Olin is such a strong community, and such a thriving on being together. And it's really wonderful to have that experience again. I would also encourage you to take a look at the website too for additional information. As I said, you know, the 45 minutes is just not a lot of time, and there's just so much to try to share with people. We have to kind of pick and choose a little bit to make sure that we're, giving you enough information or the right information, but there are invariably things that we have to leave out. So the website is full of lots of details. And we work hard to make sure that it's current and accurate. So you can certainly browse with confidence. A lot of good stuff there. Oh, I see somebody. Oh, good. Somebody with questions. Okay. Some of the projects that students done that I think are really interesting. Well, that's a great one. So the question was some of the projects that students have done. It really runs the gamut. Every year in the introductory design class, the first year class, they do two projects. One is called the Hopper Project. So this class is bio-inspired, meaning it's inspired by the natural world, and students build a creation, a thing that hops. And that is one of the sort of the first midterm projects that students do. And it's iconic around here. I mean, it's very exciting. So that's a really fun one. Students also do in that same class at the end of the semester a group project called the Game or Toy Project. And again, it's bio-inspired. So taking inspiration from the natural world, students work in teams to design a game or a toy that a fourth grade child would like to play with. And so they come up with some really fun stuff. So they design it and they also build it. And then we bring fourth graders to campus so everybody can play with it. And the fourth graders can tell you whether or not it's a good toy. So those are really, really fun. Okay. And then every student also does a capstone experience in their senior year. And so the projects are increasingly more sophisticated as they go on. And the capstone experience sort of brings to bear all of the qualities, all the skills that students have been acquiring over their 4 years. And they're working on projects that are either sponsored by a corporation or by a nonprofit, and having to do with issues of poverty in the developing world. And one of, I think, the most interesting projects that students worked on a couple of years ago was sponsored by a nonprofit organization. And it was building low-cost air filters for people who live near the airport in Boston. So in Boston, Logan Airport is in a residential area because it's an old airport. It was built in a time, now airports are built sort of far away from the city. This is right in the city. And obviously people who live close to the airport, have air quality issues. And so our students worked with a faculty advisor to develop low cost, but effective air filters that people could use in their homes. And so that was a project that was really exciting. It also had real impact. It really helped people improve their lives. One more question here. You're welcome. I'm glad to provide all the information. Anyway, we're just about wrapped up now. So thank you all so much for your attention tonight. I really appreciate it. And as a parent myself, I know how this goes. You end the session and then you immediately think of 5 or 6 things that you wanted to ask and you forgot. But have no fear, just email us at info@olin.edu and we will be happy to get back to you with any information that you need. We want people to be well informed so they can make a good choice about Olin. So I'm going to send it back to Nashira. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 5-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback that you have. You'll be able to find this session's recording as well as all the other session recordings at strivescan.com/CACHET. Have a good one and thank you.